talk with you. You don't have to tell me anything that's new. I just wanna go out on a walk with you. I just wanna see your shadow next to mine, sailing over pavement with our two well.
I'm going to be taking you into my planning process for a new draft. If you're not familiar with me, hi, I'm Brielle. I'm currently in the process of revising my debut adult dystopian fantasy book. I just learned that dystopian fantasy is in fact a subgenre that encapsulates books with a dystopian setting with some magical elements, which is a perfect encapsulation of what I have going on with my book. So I just think it's funny how this book has evolved in terms of what I'm calling it, framing it as I've gotten to know it better and understand what it is better. Like, I started off calling it a romantasy, which it is definitely not. Anyway, I'm currently in the preparation phase for draft 3 of this book, which is going to be another developmental pass before I give this book off to beta readers. I've been reading through and taking notes on the entire book, and we have just a small sliver of it remaining to do that for. I'm at just about the Dark Night of the Soul. So we have the Dark Night of the Soul, break into 3, and then Act 3 remaining to read through and take notes on. I've been taking notes in notebooks, and at this point we've spanned 2 notebooks, not fully, but we've had to break into a second notebook because of the chaotic notes that I've been taking. It's been a while since I've updated you guys on the read through, unless you were a member on my Patreon page, in which case you've seen a vlog of me working on it, but these notes are pretty messy at this point. They're chaotic. They are organized chapter by chapter, but because I'm trying to make a point of like writing down notes quickly because I don't want to like lose where I'm at in the story. My focus is the read through and experiencing the book as a whole in a zoomed out way. And so as a result, I don't want to like disrupt that momentum and that reader experience by getting super derailed trying to write down my notes. So I've been taking notes very quickly, leading to it being a bit of a mess, which brings us to what we're going to be doing in this video. Firstly, we're going to finish out my read through and note taking on all of the things that I want to change in this next draft. But then I'm also going to attempt to consolidate these notes from the 2 notebooks that I've been working in at this point and just put them all in a Word document. I'm not going to attempt to do anything crazy. I'm literally just going to transcribe them. I don't want to slow myself down. It's been about 2 weeks since I got the printout, which I'm really happy with that pace, but I want to break into draft 3 soon. And then I'm also going to make a list of all of the prospective scenes I want to add, which at the moment is looking like 3 scenes. And there are also some things that I want to like trim and rework, but I'm going to rely more so on my chapter by chapter notes for deciphering what those things are. So those are the plans. Those are the thoughts. I think I'm going to take the draft and my notebook over to my favorite cafe. It is a beautiful sunny day in Seattle today, which is a wonderful change of pace. We're finally starting to get a taste of spring, which has been so awesome. And I'm craving a strawberry matcha to soak in the sunny vibes. It is a Friday around lunchtime, so it might be swamped, but I do still want to go. I feel like with something like the read through, I don't need a ton of space. I just need a small table where I can sit and read and write notes and all of that. I would ideally love to finish the read through today so that we can dedicate tomorrow to just doing that like final document, that basically revision plan for myself. And then I do want to print that out so that as I'm going through the revision process, I can very clearly see my progress by crossing out items as I address them. That's another reason why I wanted to do the transfer from just like the notebooks to a proper document, is because I think with the notebooks, I would get really lost in the sauce. My progress wouldn't be as visible. But if I have a revision plan that's just like 2 printed pages, you know what I mean? It's going to be a lot clearer to see my progress as I cross things off because it'll be more consolidated. Also, another pro I feel like of the typed up revision plan will be going through the process of typing up all my notes will help me to identify patterns and like overall trends that I might not have even been able to see doing the read through, because it's an even further zoom out of like, what types of notes am I leaving repetitively? What sections of the book have heavier notes versus lighter notes? I have also in my annotations been marking sort of the overall status of the chapter. So essentially, is it in decent shape, like things need to be tweaked, but overall it's pretty strong? Or is it in need of heavier work, which in this case would be like portions need to be rewritten or major parts need to be cut, like it needs more help, you know? So I do also want to clearly identify that on my revision plan document, like which chapters are getting just like a cleanup, some minor things need to be tweaked, maybe some world building pieces aren't properly conveyed, versus which chapters am I gutting, reworking, rewriting. I'm hoping the number of chapters that need like overhauling is minimal in draft 3 compared to in draft 2. Something that's really exciting is that this weekend on Sunday, I am hosting kind of a little event, I guess you could say, that I'm putting together, which is essentially an all-day writing day with my writing group. I've never tried something like this. The hope is that if it goes well, this can be like a recurring thing that we do as a group and we all just like sit in a room together and write all day. But I really want to kickstart draft 3 on that day. I think that would be really fun. That's why I'm trying to get all this draft 3 planning and prep done in the next 2 days. So we've got a tight timeline, but I think it's doable and I'm really excited. So excited to drink a strawberry matcha today. Even though I go to this cafe like literally multiple times a week, and it's also where I host my writing group, so I'm there all the time, I have shown it very minimally in the vlogs. And frankly, it's mostly because I do go there all the time and like I know the staff and stuff. And I don't know, if I go into a cafe that I rarely am in, I can be a lot more shameless with filming. But because I like know these people, I'm like a little more hesitant to be caught filming. But at a certain point, one has to just be like, too bad. I'm about to leave for the cafe, literally already wearing my backpack. But I had a stray thought that I wanted to add in here, which is just that I think one of my favorite parts of the read-through process is the little surprises. And anyone who's revised probably knows what I'm talking about. Like, this can go both ways, right? Positive and negative, but obviously we're talking about the positive side of this here. When you come across a scene and you're just reading it and you're like pleasantly surprised, like whether it's there's a little bit of dialogue that you forgot you threw in there that you think is clever, or maybe you're just pleasantly surprised that the last few chapters have flowed together pretty well and this is feeling like a book. Maybe it's something you changed in the draft that you had forgotten that you changed that's really working. Like those little moments are what really makes the read through part of the process so worthwhile to me. And you can just, for just a moment, forget about all the problems and just genuinely enjoy this piece of work that you've been pouring yourself into for months or even years. Those are the moments that make the whole writing process worthwhile. And I think the beauty of revision is getting to see more and more of your book feel that way. More and more of your book feel enjoyable and rewarding and like getting that payoff. When I was reading through draft 1, those moments of, ooh, love this, were very, very sporadic. They were still cool to see because it was my first time ever reading through something I had written in this way, but they were rare. And to now be reading a draft where, 60-70% of the draft is that feeling of, oh, like this is kind of fun. This is kind of enjoyable. And not all of it is a surprise, right? Some of it I'm like, oh yeah, I remember like fixing this or going this direction with the scene, but some of it is a surprise. Just getting that ratio of like how much of this book is actually enjoyable for me to read at this point, how much of this book am I proud of at this point, seeing that like percentage increase is what I think is so cool about revision. And I'm excited with each draft for that to continue becoming a wider and wider percentage until eventually, hopefully, the whole book is something I'm proud of. And I know there will probably have to be a point where I cut off any perfectionist tendencies, and maybe I will never get to that place where I'm like 100%. I love every single word on the page. Maybe that's a little bit of an unrealistic expectation to have if I do want to get this book out before the year 2030, But if I can get it to like 98, 99%, like that will be so cool. Anyway, just a little tidbit about the read-through process. Now let's actually go to the cafe.
Could you catch me up here? Tell me what you felt. My head is filling bottles that keep falling off the shelves. Well, every word hit like a prism out of color that was wasted. I could see through every layer. This was heaven, I could taste it. Tapping on the counter, terracotta floor, voices warm and blended, weaving through the door. My skin was wide awake, so close I could hardly take it. Move quiet, leaning into spirit
Hi, it's evening time now. The sun is setting, so that's why this footage is on the darker side, but we have a rather bright floor lamp providing us with a little bit of illumination. We just had the most gorgeous sunset. It's actually warm enough that I'm wearing a t-shirt right now. Writing is going very well. I've gotten through multiple chapters. However, I think I underestimated how much I had left to go because I worked on this for 3.5 hours and I still have 5 more chapters. The good thing is that these chapters have been pretty strong so far. I just read through the exchange between my main character and a peripheral love interest. And this peripheral love interest, literally, I'm not kidding, in draft 1, when I did the reread, the notes that I made were like, why is he so like dull, unattractive? He feels stiff. He's not giving at all the vibes I want to give. And in this iteration, in draft 2, he's giving everything, actually. Like, I was getting flustered reading the chapters between them. I'm feeling very positively about the book and my writing at the moment. This isn't overly surprising. This stuff towards the end of the book I revised just a few months ago, so it makes sense to me that it's a little bit stronger than some of the earlier stuff that I hadn't touched in a while. So anyway, I'm going to keep working on that, and I'll probably talk to you guys tomorrow morning. Good morning. Happy Saturday. Took me a second there. Against all odds, we did it. Last night we finished the full draft 2 read through. Thrilled. So happy that we did that. I finished it at like midnight, but I was determined to finish the read through yesterday so that today we were ready to work on creating my draft 3 checklist plan document. So we did it. I have some reflections to share. This section is interesting because of a recent decision I made about a world building piece for the location that all these chapters are taking place in. There's going to be like semi-major changes, at least in terms of like setting and like how I'm introducing characters, the terminology for things. Basically, I'm modernizing the setting of these last few chapters. And as a result, I'm going to have to like redo how I introduce a lot of the elements of this new place. And it's just going to entail a lot of description reworking and stuff. So I had like some semi-heavier notes on these chapters, but I still like a lot of the dialogue and character interactions that are there. So I foresee that being a semi-major revision, just having to craft a whole new kind of atmosphere for these characters to be moving in these last few chapters. And I think a resource that I'm going to be looking to for some inspiration and tips as I work on creating this new version of the world building in this new continent is a class that I discovered over on Skillshare. Thank you so much to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. Skillshare is the largest online learning community for creatives with thousands of classes across a wide variety of creative topics like writing, productivity, content creation, and more. The class that I discovered is called Descriptive Writing, Crafting Vivid, Immersive Scenes. It's taught by Kathy Fish, and I feel like this class will be super helpful for me. I've noticed as I've been doing this read through of draft 2 that as a result of trying to add in more description and more atmosphere in draft 2, there are times where I either overwrote it or it felt too much like a dump. It wasn't as effective as maybe it could have been. And so I think this class is really going to help me figure out how to do description right, how to make sure that it's at the right balance where it doesn't feel underdone or overdone, and how to also just choose what I'm describing more intentionally so that I'm not wasting any words or sentences on details that are less interesting and instead adding in descriptive detail that really makes that difference. So if you want to check out the class that I mentioned or any of the other thousands of classes available by creatives for creatives on Skillshare, then you can try out Skillshare completely for free because the first 500 people to use my link in the description will receive a 1-month free trial with Skillshare. Thank you again to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. So yes, that is a major change that I'm going to be working on in draft 3. Is tweaking that world building element. It's also funny to me because these last 5 chapters was what I worked on my writing retreat with Caitlin and Andy when I finished draft 2. And I could feel as I was on that writing retreat, the quality of my revision kind of deteriorating as I got more and more tired throughout the day, to the point where by the time I got to the last scene, I knew it was not coming together in the way that I needed it to. And as I was doing the reread and I got to that last scene, I was like, Brielle. Like, it was definitely more lazily scrapped together, and obviously as it being the last scene, like, it needs to have way higher impact emotionally. It really needs to feel like a tied together of the entire book leading up to that point, as well as the big like resolution scene that she has with the love interest needs to feel like that tying point, which actually just made me realize that she never really had a resolution with the other female character who she was also fighting with. So I'm gonna write that down right now. There's lots of realizations I've been having even after the fact of finishing the reread of just like, wait, why doesn't she do that? Why don't they do that? Like, where's that? I'm glad actually that I'm discovering more and more stuff that I want to add into Act 3 as well as Act 2, Part 2, because that part of the book definitely was lacking in terms of overall ratio of the novel. And so I'm glad that I'm realizing things that need to be added. But yeah, that last scene definitely needs more finessing, needs more work. But I think, as I've kind of mentioned, I think in a few of my recent vlogs, as I get more and more of the book chronologically feeling solid, I think what needs to be in the later parts of the book is going to become more and more clear, not just in terms of like what needs to happen on a plot level, but even just like reflections and like pulling in emotions. I think it's going to become more and more clear to me, because even in draft 2, I did a lot more tying things back, bringing up things from the past, bringing up memories and things that make the story feel connected and make our main character feel like she's genuinely being impacted by the things that are happening to her. And I want to continue doing that sort of like more and more of that, pushing things into the later parts of the book from the beginning so that it has that feeling of like everything is being impacted by the previous events and scenes don't exist in isolation. They really feel like they're having a dialogue with like the rest of the book. Those are the sorts of things that I've been thinking about before going into draft 3. That's definitely going to be a focus of draft 3, is kind of like pulling and tying threads, making sure that my main character is actually reflecting on things, being affected by things, etc. Also, I came to a realization that our main character just doesn't like try enough different things for the finale portion. Like, obviously the finale is supposed to be like a multi-scene beat where like our character is out here doing things, and especially for this main character where the whole point of her arc is her getting like the will to try and fight for herself and fight for what she wants. Yet she kind of rolls over at the end like a little too easily. And that was something that really stuck out to me when I was working on the book, and also something that I feel like I've given as a note quite a bit with my critique services. So whenever I like catch something in my own writing that I've identified in edit letters or feedback that I've given in the past, it's just like really nice actually, because obviously seeing our own work objectively is so much harder than seeing another person's work objectively. But being able to like recognize a problem that's familiar to me, if that makes sense, because I've diagnosed it in other manuscripts or just like it's a recurring piece of feedback that I've given to clients, it really actually validates and makes it clearer for me the solution in my own work, because I'm like, oh, it's just like that situation. Like I just need to do the same fix that I recommended to them, you know? So it's kind of cool. And it takes me into like editor brain of my own work, which is nice. But yeah, I basically just realized she needs to try more. She literally only tries one tactic to figure out this problem for herself before she receives like a lot of outside help with it. And I'm like, that's a little... And what's crazy is in the original iteration, like she tried nothing before going straight to eliciting help from another character, which to be fair, she is manipulating that character to get him to help her, or trying to manipulate that character to get him to help her. So it's not like she's passive in that dynamic, but there just is not enough variation in terms of her tactics. So I'm going to add in another scene that could also like up the tension and stakes of this whole section of her like sneaking around, maybe listening in on some like top secret info, like something of that sort, you know, a little espionage. So basically a lot of ideas are flowing. There's some scenes I potentially want to add and or pretty severely alter. There's definitely stuff that needs to be added at the very end of the book, but the read through is complete, and those are all my final thoughts. Going forward, today we are creating the plan, the checklist, the document. It is a beautiful sunny day once again, and I think this next week is going to be rainy according to what my friend told me. So I'm going to make sure I get outside, we're going to go for a walk, and then I'm thinking we're going to cafe hop for the afternoon. And I'm hoping between those 2 cafe sessions, I can get this document complete in hopes that I can print it off tonight to be ready to jump into revision tomorrow at my all-day writing day. So, not gonna lie, the thought of putting together this whole plan is daunting, but I know at the end of the day, it's pretty simple. It really can't take that long, right? I don't know why I have this itching feeling that it's going to take so much longer than I'm imagining it will. Maybe that's just because most things take longer than you imagine they will. Let's get on with our little day of prep. I'm so excited. Hi, voiceover Brielle here. So the first thing I did was go on a nice little walk around the lake. I have been doing this practice on the weekends of essentially just taking a tiny little notebook out to the park and doing a little gratitude journaling session. I'm trying to work on being more appreciative for all of the amazing things going on in my life and all the opportunities. And so I wanted to just go ahead and make a little gratitude list, as well as a little list of wins and what I accomplished that week. I feel like I can often fall into the trap of feeling like I'm never doing enough. And so taking a moment to reflect on just the sheer amount of projects that I was able to accomplish really helped me to get out of that trap. Then me and my boyfriend went to the one and only pottery cafe that we are now obsessed with. He's also obsessed. He's told me that he wants to start going every week to this place, which I'm not mad about in the slightest. And I made some really great progress. I was able to kickstart the whole little revision plan, and I had a lot of fun just getting to format this whole document, transcribe my notes, and just really look at the project from a little bit more of a zoomed out view. So it was a very productive session. I got, of course, a matcha. These matchas taste very not sweet, classic matcha. Like, according to Jeff, it tastes like grass, but to me, that is a high quality matcha. So I love them there. And I also got a lovely little bagel with cream cheese, which hit the spot. And yeah, it was great. This has to be a very speedy update because I'm about to go meet up with my friend Abby from Writing Group to continue the momentum that we are building with working on this revision plan. I've gotten 9 chapters in, and I really underestimated how much material is going to be in this plan. I had it in my head that I was going to be able to fit the entire novel's worth of notes on like a couple pages. No, this document is going to be easily 20 pages long at the least, just from typing up my notes. And there's literally single chapters that have a whole page. So yeah, it's going to be a long document. We are only on chapter 9 and we've been working on it for a couple hours, and there's 47 chapters in this draft, in the current version of this draft, plus we're adding chapters, so this plan is going to entail probably more than that. I have a feeling we're going to end up consolidating some chapters because I don't really want the book to have that many chapters, but anyway, we're getting on a side tangent that we don't have time for. All that being said, I'm accepting the very real possibility that continuing to work on this plan might have to be something that I'm doing throughout the beginning stages of working on draft 3. At least I have more than enough material ready for me to use tomorrow for the all-day writing day. I only am hoping to get through 5 chapters, and I've already, consolidated notes for 9 chapters. I'm also reworking the beat sheet to reflect draft 2, so I'm creating a draft 2 version of my Save the Cat beat sheet that I had based on draft 1 to reflect all of the scenes and chapters I've added, changes I've made, and take a look at whether or not the percentages are falling in a good place at this point. I actually think they're going to be falling in a lot better of a place because when I did the beat sheet the first time around, a lot of the setup beats were coming in too early because my setup was underdeveloped, as we've talked many times about. So I actually think those early beats are going to hit a lot closer to the correct percentages now. So I want an updated version of my beat sheet for how the story has evolved, and I'll probably also include the scenes I'm going to be adding to that beat sheet. And then I would love to also do an updated chapter by chapter outline with all the new material that's been added. I don't even know if I've ever done a chapter by chapter outline, like not of the full book with every chapter. Lots of stuff that I want to do, but I am accepting that this might have to be something that I continue to work on as I get started with revision, and kind of like a headlights approach almost of doing prep, then doing some revision work, doing prep, doing revision work, kind of an outline as I go vibe. Anyway, we got to get outside and meet up with Abby. Well, we did it. We do in fact have a draft 3 checklist. It ended up just being the first 16 chapters that I got through of creating this checklist. Though in hindsight, I actually think that that's totally fine. That's just about enough to get me through the first month of working on revisions, and then I'll have an opportunity to potentially assess how the checklist is working for me and see if there's anything I want to tweak about the strategy going forward. I did designate 2 highlight colors, one for chapters that I need to rewrite for characterization, which there's actually quite a few, specifically in Act 2, and then a different color for new material. In this first batch of chapters, I think it's only 1 chapter, 2 scenes of new material, at least that I know of as of right now. There's definitely like an inkling I have that there might be another scene missing, but I can't yet identify what it would need to be. So yeah, it did end up being a much longer document than I was anticipating. It's just about 15 pages, just about 1 page per chapter. Some chapters, only have a few bullet points, as you can see here. Some of the earlier chapters, which I've worked on much more extensively. But then there are chapters that look like this, where it's just a full page of bullet point notes in much more detail. So I'm very curious to see how I feel about this method of working off of a checklist rather than working off of inline annotations. I'm glad that I'm getting sort of this like trial and error experience with my first book so that going forward, I can get a sense of my preferred methods and like my process that I'll take forward with me. I'm loving having a physical printed out document. I haven't printed something out in a minute, and I forgot how much I just love that. Like the sound of it being printed out, getting to staple it, the feeling of just like a booklet of letter-sized pages. There is something about it. There really is. So basically, I'm going to be jumping into draft 3. I'm going to be jumping into revision now. Today is the all-day writing challenge day. That's probably going to be the beginning of the next vlog that I post. If you enjoyed this one, leave a flower emoji down in the comments for spring, since there was a bit of like spring in Seattle footage in this video. Check out my critique services down below. Check out my Patreon if you want bonus content. Bye!